This is Bloomberg Markets Balance of Power, August 12th, 2020.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. I'm David Weston. The big news overnight didn't come out of Washington. It came out of Wilmington, Delaware, where presumptive presidential candidate Joe Biden announced that Senator Kamala Harris would be his running mate. Welcome now somebody who's a fellow member of the California delegation. He's Congressman Ted Lieu, Democrat representing the 33rd Congressional District. So, Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. Let me ask the most basic question. If this is the right answer, why is it the right answer?
Thank you, David, for your question. America should be thrilled that Joe Biden selected Kamala Harris as the vice presidential candidate. I've known Kamala for many years. I was her first congressional endorser for president. She is a former prosecutor. She ran the largest legal operation in the General of California. And as U.S. Senator, she has introduced groundbreaking legislation. She's a perfect candidate to be vice president.
So let's pick up on that prosecutor, because you've been something of a prosecutor yourself, working your way up to colonel, actually, as I understand, in the Air Force. You actually ran against Kamala Harris, as I understand it, for state attorney general. There's been some criticism from the left, I would have to say, if I can characterize it that way, that she was too harsh as a prosecutor. Is that possibly a problem for her with the left wing of the Democratic Party?
I don't think so. And by the way, my advice is never run against Kamala Harris. So in terms of her record, you don't get to be elected as the district attorney of San Francisco and then elected statewide in California as attorney general if you weren't progressive. She has a record that she can put up against anyone, and she's going to prosecute Donald Trump in terms of showing all his failures in addressing this pandemic, in terms of creating jobs, in terms of his multiple failures on the foreign policy front. And she's done that with other witnesses before her in congressional hearings. She'll continue to do that as vice president.
Does she help the ticket in this respect? That President Trump clearly wants to make law and order, as he calls it, a major issue. Talked about it again yesterday at the White House. Does she actually, as we would say, pull teeth on that argument a little bit?
As a former prosecutor, as a former attorney general, she completely understands the risks that law enforcement personnel take when they put on their uniform every day. She also understands institutional racism has affected many institutions across America. And with the George Floyd murder, she was one of the first people to step out and participate in the rallies and marches and introduce legislation to crack down on institutional racism.
Congressman, one of the things that strikes me is that in some ways this is a really surprising, historic choice. First African-American woman to run for this office, first Asian-American woman to run for this office, and yet it seemed almost obvious by the time it came. What does that tell us about where we are right now in the country? Does it say that we've made some progress?
Progress will not be stopped, and I think it shows a lot that Joe Biden selected such a historic pick in Kamala Harris. And it's not just who she is, it's also what she's done. When I was in the California State Assembly, I was chair of banking, and then I worked on these issues in the California State Senate. And I know that Kamala Harris, at the same time, worked with us, and she fought the big banks in terms of the settlement and extracted a fair and better settlement for consumers. She has the courage and tenacity to not only be vice president, but also to really do what is needed in America to right our country.
Should Wall Street be concerned about her?
Not at all, because the settlement that she had with the Wall Street banks was a fair settlement. And at the end of the day, everyone shook hands and consumers got their things that they should have gotten because of the failures of some of the banks during the Great Recession.
One of the issues that President Trump has raised, trying to tar both Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris, is that they're left. They're socialist, or at least they're inclined towards socialism. She has taken some positions on universal health care in the past that could trouble some voters, including at one point saying she wanted to eliminate private insurance, although I believe she backed off of that. What about her position? Is she a centrist? Is she left of center? Is she far left?
I believe it depends on the issue. She, like many Americans, supports universal health care. That's an issue that Democrats have run on, will continue to run on. And we see with this COVID-19 pandemic how important getting quality, affordable health care is to everyone. Right now, the Donald Trump administration is suing to eliminate the only law in the nation that guarantees coverage for pre-existing conditions. Kamala Harris will fight back against that, as will Joe Biden. And if you support healthcare, then you should support Biden-Harris in 2020.
Well, should we expect more taxes out of Biden-Harris?
The Affordable Care Act has been in place for several years, and that has delivered quality, affordable health care and protects pre-existing conditions. You did not see a large spike in taxes. In fact, what you saw was a reduction in healthcare premiums, and that is what we're fighting to preserve and protect. And we really wish Donald Trump would stop suing to eliminate the only law in the nation that guarantees pre-existing conditions healthcare coverage.
So I take your point on healthcare, but more broadly, Vice President Biden has proposed a number of programs that would cost a lot of money, and there have been indications he's going to have to tax a fair amount to get that done. In fact, Kamala Harris, as I understand it, supported actually a financial transactions tax. So as a practical matter, I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but in deciding whether to vote for this ticket, should we expect our taxes will go up, some of us?
It's hard to predict what the House and the Senate and the White House would do. What I do know is the Republican tax law that passed was a very large scam that essentially increased taxes on millions of middle-class families. It also gave most of the benefits to the top 1% in our country. That's just something that Americans did not really expect or want. And I know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are both opposed to the Republican tax law.
And finally, let's talk about China a little bit. You're a Taiwanese America, and you can understand, and you have strong views, as I understand it, on some of the things that China has been doing. Kamala Harris also does. What is her position on China, as you understand it?
So, first of all, what China did in suppressing information about the virus at the beginning is indefensible. That's very different than having the President of the United States use phrases like Kung flu or Chinese virus, because that fuels hatred against Asian Americans. And I know that Kamala Harris, who is half Asian American, has fought and will continue to fight for all minorities and to stand up against hate crimes. We know that across America, there's been over 2,000 hate crimes against Asian Americans, and we need the Biden-Harris duo to really stand up and fight to make sure we don't have any more hate crimes across America targeted at Americans who happen to be minorities.
Okay, thank you so much, Congressman, for your time and your thoughts today. That's Congressman Ted Lieu, Democrat of California. Coming up here, the Trump doctrine. Richard Haas, president of the Council on Foreign Relations, is here with his assessment of nearly 4 years now